Season 1, Episode 4. The Cave as a Temple. Subtitle: Darkness, Descent, and the First Sacred Architecture. At the mouth of the cave, daylight hesitates. Behind you, the open air still belongs to ordinary life. Wind moves through grass. Birds make their nervous little declarations from the trees. Somewhere beyond the slope, water travels over stone with that ancient confidence water has, as if it has read the whole book and found mankind a temporary footnote. Ahead, the cave waits. The entrance is low and dark. Its stone lip cuts the sky into a narrow shape. Step closer and the air changes. It cools, first at the face, then at the hands, then beneath the skin. Sound becomes smaller. The world outside continues, but it has been set at a distance, as though someone has closed a heavy door inside the mind. This is where the story of sacred architecture begins. Before the temple rose on a platform, before the pyramid measured the sun, before the cathedral gathered a city beneath stone ribs and colored glass, human beings entered the earth. They passed from daylight into darkness, and treated that passage as meaningful. The cave was shelter, of course. It was stone above the head and protection from weather. Yet the painted caves of the Upper Paleolithic were often more than places to sleep, cook, and hide from teeth in the night. Many of them carried images deep inside, far from the entrance, where ordinary convenience had packed its little bag and gone home. To reach the image, one had to descend. That matters. A painted bison on a wall near the campfire says one thing. A painted bison reached through a crawl, a slope, a chamber, a squeeze of stone, and a trembling lamp, says another. The body learns before the mind explains. Knees bend, breath slows, hands touch the wall for balance. The flame flickers. The cave receives the visitor in stages. The first temples may have had no columns. They had thresholds. Think of a person moving through a cave with a small lamp of animal fat. The flame does little against the dark. It makes a trembling circle of sight, and beyond that circle the stone continues, unseen and patient. The walls bend inward, the ceiling drops, a shadow leaps and vanishes. The person carries ochre, charcoal, perhaps a tool, perhaps memory. Every step has weight. No modern gallery can quite recover that first condition. In a museum, the image stands under obedient lighting. A label explains the date, the material, the scholarly dispute, and perhaps the tragic fact that someone received funding to write the phrase "ritual context" with a straight face. In the cave, no such comfort exists. There is stone, darkness, breath, flame, image, and the sense that the earth has an interior life. The cave teaches by approach. It is a building made by no builder, yet it behaves like sacred architecture. It separates outside from inside. It narrows movement. It changes sound. It hides its chambers. It trains the body to pass through fear before vision. It makes the visitor aware of entrance, depth, silence, and return. A later temple stands as a crafted model of the cosmos. Its plan orders space. Its gate divides the common road from sacred ground. Its inner chamber contains a holy presence, often reached only through preparation and restriction. The cave already gives the rough grammar. It has the threshold, it has the passage, it has the chamber, it has the hidden image, it has the costly approach. The cave is older than architecture, yet it already knows what architecture wants. This episode begins with a simple claim. The cave was humanity's first temple because it gave sacred experience a spatial form. A temple does several things at once. It marks a boundary. It turns movement into meaning. It places the human body under an order larger than itself. It gathers memory into a place. The cave does all of this without a mason's chisel or a priestly committee, which may be one reason it feels so severe. Human beings did not invent its darkness. They entered it. The painted cave reveals a world in which place itself could become charged. The stone wall was no blank surface. It was skin, veil, door, membrane. The animals painted there did not float in empty space. They appeared from bulges, cracks, ridges, and hollows in the rock. A natural curve could become the shoulder of a horse. A swelling in the wall could carry the flank of a bull. The artist did not impose an image upon dead matter, like a man decorating an office wall because human resources found the beige emotionally risky. He answered what the stone already suggested. This is one of the great secrets of cave art. The cave was seen as alive with forms before the pigment touched it. Light made this more powerful. Under a moving flame, painted animals seem to stir. A line catches fire, then sinks back. A horn appears from shadow. A dark ridge becomes a back. In steady electric light, the image becomes an object. In flame, it becomes an event. The cave does not simply contain art, it performs it. The body of the visitor becomes part of the work. To see the images, the visitor must move. The wall changes with each step. The flame changes with each breath. The animal appears, withdraws, appears again. This is sacred art before the comfortable tyranny of the chair. Consider the deep chamber. The entrance has been left behind. The sound of the outer world has faded. The lamp smokes faintly. The smell is animal fat, damp stone, mineral earth, and human breath trapped in a pocket of darkness. Then the wall opens into figures. A horse turns its head. A bison lowers its mass into the stone. A lion moves forward with terrible calm. The animals are larger than daily life, even when they are small. That sounds strange until one stands before an image in darkness. Size in a sacred place is never merely a measurement. A small icon can command a room. A miniature in a manuscript can draw the eye into a universe. A candle before a saint's face can make a wall feel inhabited. In the cave, a charcoal horse may seem to carry the pressure of the herd, the hunt, hunger, fear, admiration, death, and gratitude. The animal becomes more than an animal because the place has made it so. The cave magnifies presence. Here the stone itself matters. Later sacred buildings imitate mountains, forests, heavens, and cosmic order. The cave begins with the mountain already around the worshipper. Its ceiling is weight. Its floor is uneven truth. Its walls are rough, glistening in places, scarred in others. There is no polite symmetry. There is a majesty more primal than symmetry. The cave does not flatter the visitor. It swallows him, chills him, and gives him images. The first sacred space was not comfortable. That should tell us something. Modern people often treat sacred space as a place of reassurance, soft lighting and rounded edges, preferably with a lobby that smells faintly of burnt coffee and committee decisions. The cave gives a harder lesson. Sacred space may console, but first it dislocates. It takes the visitor out of ordinary scale. It makes him feel small, watched, and dependent upon fire. This is where art and religion become impossible to separate. The animal on the wall, the path through darkness, the hidden chamber, the bodily risk, the silence, the flame, each belongs to the meaning of the other. Remove the cave from the painting, and the painting changes. Remove the painting from the cave, and the cave remains powerful, but its hidden speech grows quieter. To call the cave a temple does not require us to pretend that Paleolithic people had formal theology in the later sense. We do not need to dress them in borrowed robes and appoint them assistant professors of comparative religion, a punishment no hunter deserves. The point is more basic and more powerful. They made places where contact with unseen forces seemed possible. The cave's structure gave that contact shape. Its darkness separated it from daily life. Its depth created a journey. Its chambers gathered images in spaces reached through effort. Its stone surfaces became points of contact between seen and unseen worlds. Every later temple carries this pattern in a clearer, more built form. A sacred building often begins with an entrance that interrupts ordinary movement. It may include a courtyard, a hall, a screen, a sanctuary, an altar, an inner room. The visitor does not simply arrive, he passes. He is prepared by space. Distance becomes reverence. Restriction becomes meaning. The hidden center gains power because it is hidden. The cave gives the old version of that grammar in stone and dark. The entrance is the first lesson. It marks a change in condition. Outside, vision is broad. Inside, sight must be earned. Outside, the sun rules. Inside, human beings carry a small, borrowed light. Outside, sound disperses. Inside, sound returns. The cave makes the body aware of its limits, which is one of the first steps in worship. A man who cannot see beyond a little flame becomes less tempted to declare himself Lord of all things. Darkness has a way of trimming the ego's feathers. Then comes the passage. A passage transforms walking into ritual. It slows the person down. It turns movement into attention. In a cave, this can be literal. The ground may slope, the ceiling may lower, the person may need to crawl or turn sideways. This is the opposite of public convenience. Sacred space often resists easy access because ease can cheapen arrival. The body pays attention when the body must work. By the time the chamber is reached, the mind has already changed. This is why the cave matters for the history of religion. It shows that sacred art begins in relation to hiddenness. The painted animal is visible, but it is placed within darkness. The image reveals, yet the cave conceals. The two belong together. Religion often lives within that tension. The divine is shown through form and hidden beyond form. The God appears in the statue and exceeds the statue. The saint appears in the icon and is more than paint. The sacred book gives words, while the mystery behind the words remains deeper than speech. The cave already knows this. It reveals by withholding. A chamber deep in the earth is an image of interiority. To enter it is to move inward beneath the ordinary surface of the world. That inward movement may have suggested the womb, the grave, the belly of the animal, the underworld, the place of spirits, or the secret body of the earth. We cannot pin the meaning down with the neat cruelty of a file cabinet. That uncertainty should make us careful, not mute. What can be said is this: the cave turns depth into sacred meaning. Depth is never neutral in religious imagination. Above and below, outside and inside, center and edge, light and darkness, entrance and return. These are among the oldest ways human beings think with space. A cave gathers several at once. It leads down, it encloses, it hides. It gives back sound, it preserves marks over immense time. It feels older than the visitor and indifferent to him, which is often how sacred places begin their education. The cave also changes time. Outside, time is weather, hunger, movement, daylight, animal tracks. Inside, time thickens. The cave may preserve a print, a line, a smudge, a trace of flame. A mark on stone can outlive generations. It can hold the gesture of a dead hand long after the hand has returned to dust. The cave becomes memory made architectural. One of the most haunting features of painted caves is the way human presence appears indirectly. The animals dominate. The human figure often withdraws, fragments, or appears as a sign. Yet hands remain. A hand pressed to stone, pigment blown around it, leaves a pale shape where the body once touched the wall. That hand is neither portrait nor signature in the modern sense. It is contact. In a temple, one often finds traces of touch. A worn threshold, a polished rail, a darkened icon where lips have met the surface, a step hollowed by feet, a stone rubbed smooth by petitions carried across centuries. The body leaves devotion behind. The cave has its own version. The hand on the wall says, "Someone came here, placed flesh against stone, and made presence endure." This changes how we should think about the cave. It is not a picture storage room. It is a place of approach, touch, and encounter. A human hand in a cave has a strange power because it joins vulnerability and claim. The person is small within the earth, dependent upon flame, surrounded by darkness. Yet he marks the wall. He says without words, "I have been here," or perhaps, "Receive me," or perhaps, "I belong to this passage between the seen and the unseen." The cave receives the mark and keeps it. Later sacred architecture will do the same in grander materials. A pilgrim scratches a sign into a church wall. A mason carves a face high in a cathedral where few will see it. A monk paints a letter in blue and gold with the care of a man illuminating heaven 1 inch at a time. Each act says that matter can bear memory before God. The cave stands at the beginning of that long confidence. Matter can remember. That belief, once born, changes civilization. The cave also teaches us that sacred space often begins in fear before it becomes beauty. Modern people like beauty, with all the unpleasant parts combed out. Beauty should inspire, yes, but please leave dread in the cloakroom. Ancient art rarely obeys that demand. It knows that wonder and fear are close relatives. They share a family resemblance around the eyes. A painted lion in a deep cave does not feel like a charming animal study. It carries danger. A bison is food, force, and possible death. A horse is grace and power. The animal world was not scenery. It was a living order upon which human survival depended. To paint such beings in the depths of the earth was to place mortal life in relation to powers greater than the human hand. Here the cave becomes a temple of dependence. The images show creatures that human beings pursued, feared, needed, admired, and perhaps revered. This was no sentimental nature worship with a pleasant leaflet and a grant proposal. It was a sacred attention formed under pressure. A hunter who depended on animals could not afford abstraction. He knew muscle, breath, hoof, horn, blood, and silence. He knew that life came through death. He knew that the animal was never merely material. It carried the majesty of a world he did not control. That knowledge entered the wall. The cave, then, was a place where the human community faced the powers surrounding it. The hunt, the herd, fertility, death, initiation, memory, and unseen agency could be gathered into one charged space. The paintings did not explain those powers. They gave them visible form. This is what sacred art does across the ages. It makes a presence available to sight without exhausting it. The cave animal remains animal, sign, spirit, memory, desire, fear, and gift. It refuses to become one thin thing. Good sacred art often does that. Bad commentary tries to flatten it afterward, wearing sensible shoes. The architecture of the cave is also an architecture of exclusion. Anyone can stand outside. Fewer enter. Fewer go deep. Fewer still make marks in the hidden chamber. Sacred space creates degrees of access because sacred reality is approached by degrees. This is difficult for a modern mind trained to confuse access with understanding. Yet every serious religious tradition knows that approach requires preparation. One does not handle holy things casually. The cave enforces that lesson physically. There are chambers where only small bodies could pass. There are walls where images appear beyond awkward routes. There are marks placed where labor was required. The cave does not tell us exactly who entered or why or under whose guidance. It does tell us that seeing was not always easy. The image could be reserved, hidden, approached by those ready for the journey or chosen for the act. This gives us a key to later religious buildings. The most sacred place is often hardest to reach. The sanctuary stands beyond screens. The inner chamber is entered by few. The altar is approached through rite. The holy object may be veiled, revealed, carried, kissed, or seen only at appointed moments. Hiddenness does not weaken presence, it intensifies it. The cave's darkness is the first veil. Flame becomes the first liturgy of sight. The visitor does not command the whole scene at once. He receives it in fragments. A head emerges, a line brightens, a wall seems empty, then alive. Sacred vision often works this way. It is given in portions, according to movement, light, silence, and readiness. The cave trains the eye to receive rather than seize. That distinction matters. A tourist consumes a view. A pilgrim approaches a presence. The cave favors the pilgrim. There is another reason the cave feels temple-like. It has a center without announcing one. Later sacred buildings often declare their center through design. A dome rises, an altar stands, an axis runs through the plan. The cave is subtler. Its center may be discovered through use, memory, and repeated movement. A chamber becomes holy because generations return to it. A wall becomes charged because images gather there. A passage becomes known because bodies have learned it. Sacred places are made by form and by return. The cave's center is not imposed from above. It is found through descent. That makes it feel older and stranger. The earth offers chambers. Human beings answer with fire and pigment. Between the two, sacred space appears. This cooperation between natural form and human mark will echo across sacred art. A mountain becomes the seat of a god. A spring becomes a shrine. A grove becomes a place of offering. A stone becomes an altar. Human beings do not begin with empty space. They find charged places and build upon them. They recognize, then they shape. The cave is recognition before construction. In this sense, it stands before the great temples of the ancient world like a severe ancestor. Egypt will build mountains from cut stone. Mesopotamia will raise staged towers toward heaven. Greece will give divine presence a house of proportion and marble. Christendom will lift vaults until stone seems to pray upward. Yet all of them inherit the same basic intuition. Sacred space must gather the human body into a world of meaning. The cave does this with almost nothing. No facade, no polished floor, no tower, no inscription over the door, no tasteful donor plaque, that small bronze mosquito of modern sacred architecture. Only earth, passage, darkness, image, flame. And it is enough. The cave also teaches a hard truth about sacred art. It begins before explanation. We want reasons. We want a firm account of what each animal meant, which ceremony occurred, who stood where, what words were spoken, what social purpose was served, and whether the procurement department approved the pigment. The cave refuses. It offers traces, not transcripts. This refusal is part of its power. Sacred art often outlives the system that produced it. The chant remains after the language is forgotten. The statue remains after the god's cult has died. The temple stands after the city has fallen. The cave painting remains after the people who made it have vanished into the deep weather of time. We stand before the image knowing it meant more than we can recover. That loss humbles the viewer. Humility is a proper response to the first temples. The cave does not exist to satisfy our curiosity. It reminds us that human beings were religious before they were historical in the written sense. They made meaning before they made archives. They placed images in darkness before they wrote treatises on aesthetics. The absence of written doctrine should not tempt us to reduce the images to decoration, hunting magic, psychology, or idle play. Each may explain part of the matter. None can swallow the whole beast. The deeper truth is that the cave joins art, place, body, and mystery. It shows that human beings seek contact with powers beyond ordinary sight. They give that contact a path. They make the path bodily. They set apart a chamber. They carry flame. They make images. They return. This pattern is temple logic in its earliest form. Now we can see how the cave shaped the later history of sacred space. The threshold becomes the temple gate. The passage becomes the procession. The chamber becomes the sanctuary. The wall image becomes the icon, fresco, relief, mosaic, and stained glass. The moving flame becomes the candle, lamp, censer, and glimmer before a holy face. The descent into earth becomes, in another tradition, the ascent toward heaven. Yet both movements answer the same need. Sacred architecture takes the body out of common space and places it inside a meaningful order. It changes posture. It changes attention. It changes time. A cathedral does this with height. A cave does it with depth. A cathedral pulls the gaze upward through columns, vaults, and glass. A cave draws the body inward through stone, darkness, and hidden chambers. One says the holy rises above. The other says the holy waits within. Later religions will argue over heaven, earth, image, idol, spirit, matter, purity, sacrifice, and presence. The cave gives no doctrine in words, but it establishes a permanent state. Sacred space is never merely a container for belief. It forms belief through the senses. The cave made the invisible spatial. That is why it belongs at the beginning of a history of sacred art. The first great religious artwork was not only a figure, it was a figure inside a place. The animal matters, but the cave changes the animal. The mark matters, but the path changes the mark. The flame matters, but the darkness gives the flame authority. Once this is understood, the later story of sacred art becomes clearer. Human beings will spend millennia building what the cave first gave them: a boundary from ordinary life, a path of approach, a charged center, and an image that makes unseen power visible. They will build it because the cave taught them that space can become holy. Picture the final moment before leaving. The visitor turns back toward the chamber. The lamp is almost spent. The animal on the wall seems to hover at the edge of sight. The cave has taken the visitor inward, past daylight, past ordinary speech, past the easy confidence of the open world. Now the path must be taken in reverse. The body climbs, bends, steadies itself. The air changes again. A pale grey light appears at the entrance. Then the world returns. But it is not quite the same world. That is the mark of sacred architecture. One enters ordinary space, passes through a charged boundary, encounters a hidden center, and returns altered. The landscape outside has gained depth because the earth has shown its interior. The animal outside has gained majesty because its form has appeared in the dark. The human hand has gained seriousness because it has touched stone in a place of fear and wonder. The cave does what every temple after it will try to do. It gives the world a second surface. There is the surface we use, cross, measure, and name. Then there is the deeper surface, where things reveal their relation to death, gift, power, memory, and the unseen. Sacred art opens that second surface. The cave does so with unmatched severity. It offers no argument. It gives an experience. Here at the beginning, religion is not an idea floating above matter. It is pigment on stone. It is a flame in the hand. It is cold air in the lungs. It is a body moving through darkness toward an image. The cave as temple also tells us that art begins as participation. The maker does not stand outside the world as a detached observer. He enters the earth, reads the wall, touches the surface, follows the curve of stone, and brings forth the figure. The viewer does not stand back with a polite distance and a brochure. He moves with flame, breath, and caution. The image is completed by approach. This is a forgotten lesson. Much modern viewing is frictionless. We swipe past images faster than the eye can honor them. We gather thousands of pictures and possess almost none of them. The cave allows no such laziness. To see one horse, one bison, one lion in the deep dark, the body must go there. That effort gives the image weight. A civilization's sacred art depends upon the kind of attention it trains. The cave trains reverent attention through difficulty. The temple trains it through order. The cathedral trains it through height and light. The icon trains it through stillness. The manuscript trains it through closeness. Each form tutors the senses according to its theology. The cave's theology, if we may use the word carefully, is written in descent. Go inward. Leave the open day. Carry fire. Face what is stronger than you. Touch the wall. Return. That is a severe little creed carved without letters. It may be one of the oldest. The cave was never a cathedral waiting to happen. It was its own sacred form, complete in its darkness, its danger, its secrecy, and its wonder. Yet it stands at the headwaters of sacred architecture because it taught mankind that place can mediate mystery. A wall can become more than a wall. A path can become more than a path. A chamber can become more than shelter. A mark can become memory. A flame can become revelation. The cave gathered these truths before civilization learned to stack stone toward the sky. It gave human beings a first grammar of sacred space: threshold, descent, chamber, image, return. Later ages would refine that grammar into temples, sanctuaries, shrines, churches, and mosques. They would name their gods, codify their rites, build with royal wealth, and argue with great seriousness over the proper treatment of holy images. Scholars would follow after them, sharpening pencils like tiny weapons. But the first lesson had already been given. At the edge of daylight, someone entered the earth with fire. In the darkness, stone received the animal, the hand, the breath, and the fear of a creature who knew that the world was deeper than it looked. That is the beginning of the temple. Not a building raised above the earth, but a hollow within it. Not a monument to human mastery, but a passage into humility. The first sacred architecture was a wound in the world, opened in stone, entered by flame, and filled with the shapes of living powers. And when the visitor came back into daylight, the cave remained behind him, silent and dark, keeping its images the way the earth keeps bones, secrets, and seeds.
Join us again for the grand vision.